Good morning. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to replace a micro switch on the all steel Z axis that came out as of June of 2019. At least that is as far as I know over here. So we're going to talk about replacing that micro switch. The first critical piece here is you're going to need a 1/8 hex head here, an Allen key. And what we're going to do initially is we're going to remove the 4 screws that hold on the plate. Let's take a look at this. 1, 2. All right. Pop it out there. And we'll go down here and bring out number 4. All right. This should just come right off of this plate here. Now let's go ahead. We should be able to see here we have 2 hex heads per bearing block on this carriage. This carriage slides up and down on these 2 bits of linear rail. What we're going to do is actually disassemble these 4 bearing blocks in terms of removing this plate off of there. All right, here we go. I'm going to start off with the lower ones, and what we'll notice is as we undo these, we will find that the bearing block will slide down, and we're going to need to manually put that back up in order to reattach this after the fact. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these 4 here, or these 8. Oh, there we go. Now, I should also recommend that if you are doing this while on the machine, it's good to have some sort of sheet metal or some sort of plate here that catches anything that may fall while working with this. All right, and we keep going. Oh, there we go, a little tight. Another option here is we have 6 bolts on this side of the Z-axis and 6 bolts on the opposing side over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that adhere this to the overall Z-axis or the X-axis carriage here. You can remove those 6 and work with it while it's laying down, and that will make the final part of this mounting a lot simpler. I'm going to finish this up here. All right, and there we go. Now that this plate has been removed, we can successfully access the micro switch, which is sitting right here. The part number for that is V1561C25. And in order to replace that, we're going to need in this case I'm using a flat head, but it's a Phillips head here. And we just need to undo these 2 screws entirely and remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and see if we can do that here. 1 and 2. Nope, there we go. And there's number 2. All right, so now that that's off, I can actually remove this here. And here is our switch configuration. We have our pins here and here. And on this particular micro switch, we just want to make sure that our red is aligned here and our black is aligned down at the bottom. And if I understand, we also want to make sure that these are seated as tight as possible in order to make sure that we're getting a proper connection across this switch. So just make sure that that's the case, and once you've done either repairing or replacing this, we can go ahead and go through the process of remounting it back onto this system. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and might time lapse through this one here. I should mention we want to make sure that this goes underneath this bearing. Otherwise, you're going to run into a couple of problems. Again, we want to make sure this bearing block and this bearing block are above the wire assembly. And we want those just snugged on tight there. Beautiful. so that we still get that nice clean click, but we don't want to damage the switch. Next up, with this carriage, we're going to go ahead and mount it with this slot going upwards, unless they've made some strange design between now and when I release the video. You're going to have this upwards. If you're using one of the newer Z-axis plates, there's a secondary version of this. You will mount it using those appropriate holes as well, with the flat excess coming out on top. So I'm going to go ahead and prep this here. And we're going to go back to our 1/8 tool. Now we want to be careful when remounting this, because we are going to be applying a little bit of extra pressure on that micro switch during the mounting process, which can cause a little bit of damage. We do recommend that you just disassemble the Z-axis off of this X carriage, but you can do this while it is still mounted. And you'll notice while I'm putting this together, I'm not overly tightening this process because I do want to make sure that I have good clean motion. As these holes are slightly slotted on here, I want to make sure that we're not binding it up while putting this all together. All right, now you can replace your torch at this point if you would like, as this can be put back on with or without the torch being on. Let's go ahead and slide this puppy on, and then re-tighten all of our little bolts here. And that's it. That's all it really takes. That is the process of reseating or replacing your micro switch. Perfect. So there you go, how to assemble and disassemble the front part of this carriage with the floating head in order to repair the floating head switch.